Hello and welcome to the Irish NFL Show. My name is Shane Brennan. Thank you very much for joining us as we are still building up our coverage towards the 2025 NFL Draft and keeping an eye on all the things happening across the NFL, across free agency, and all the moves which are keeping many fan bases excited in this off-season. We're delighted to have Judy Battista, insider of the NFL Network, to join the program to give her view on many things that are happening around the league. Judy, fantastic to see you. I was saying off air that your backdrop looks incredible. It keeps all of us football fans excited. And I know as well that you're excited that in Ireland we have to look forward to an NFL game as well. It's certainly a good time to be an
Yes.
NFL fan.
Yeah, the international series has been awesome, but when they announced the game in Dublin, there were a whole lot of us, the reporter group, who said, "Can we get that trip, please?" So I don't know if it's been assigned yet, but lots of excitement about that trip.
Well, that's the thing. If maybe if you come with a little bit of a like local lingo or any local knowledge, you can sort of put into the meeting. Say, okay, I already know the best spots in Dublin. Nice places to come out, and we can help you in that process if you need to try and impress the right people to get you over here because
Thank you. I'm also going to just, if I go, I would just follow the Roonies and the Pittsburgh Steelers around because they've been talking about playing a game there for a very long time, as you guys know. So they are really excited about it.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, Dan Rooney III is somebody who spent a lot of time here. I almost feel like we must have a timeshare in Dublin or something like that. He seems to spend so much time here, which is great to see. There's so much investment in the game here. But on to business, I suppose. Am I right in saying you are an alumnus of the University of Miami?
I am, yes. Cam Ward had his pro day yesterday. That was pretty great to see it. I did not go down there, but even just watching it on TV brought back a lot of memories.
Well, it's certainly in the news now. But it's the big thing that everybody's talking about right now. The fact that for any of our listeners who might not have seen, the University of Miami had their pro day, and of course, everybody came down to look at Cam Ward. And I say everybody, but in the case of the Tennessee Titans, it seemed like it was literally everybody because the head coach, most of the front office was there. They seem to have a lot of media people there to do some sort of social media filming. So when you're looking at that and how much attention they are paying to Cam Ward, how does that change the way that we see the way that this draft is going to go?
Well, I think it just adds to the idea that the Titans are going to stick at number one and take Cam Ward because very early in the process, maybe like pre-combine, there was some speculation that they would be open to a trade, that they might look to trade out. But that has really shifted, I think, again, since the combine. And in large part because during free agency, I mean, this is a team that clearly needs a quarterback. They didn't really do anything, right? I mean, you've seen other teams that need quarterbacks make moves or at least have meetings and, try to talk to Aaron Rodgers and things like that. And they just did not do any of that in free agency. So that certainly makes you think they're looking at it in the draft. And then when just the numbers, when you see that many people from the football side of the building, from the Tennessee Titans, go to Coral Gables to watch Cam Ward. And as you pointed out, like, it wasn't just like the head coach and the general manager and the head of football operations. It was their social media team was there, right? Their team reporter was there. And it's like, well, why are you sending all of the social media team there if you're not gathering footage for draft night? But they're going to have a private workout with him too, which you would expect. I'm not sure it's really the workout that matters at this point. I think they just are in the sort of getting to know you phase, and this is what we would do with you. This is what the offense would look like. So I think certainly at this point we're a little under a month out from the start of the draft, but it all signs point to the Titans staying at number one and taking Cam Ward. And, that's going to disappoint a number of teams who I think hoped to at least have the chance to jump up there and get him.
Yeah, certainly, and it's an interesting talking point as well because again, the focus on Cam Ward and the focus on some of the other players in Miami is definitely heightened because of that pro day. We know that I think the NFL Network are doing coverage of Colorado's pro day at some point next week. There will be a lot of focus on that as well. But it's interesting that there's a lot of this focus that people are talking about it and people are watching the players, but yet there's also this increasing narrative that pro days either don't matter or that players shouldn't really be taking part in these things or that they don't really affect the way that teams look at how they're going to draft players. What is your feeling around that kind of sentiment which is growing?
Well, I think all of it, any kind of contact or information that teams can gather is important, right? It just goes into the stew. I wouldn't say any one event is the most important thing, but I think it's just information gathering. obviously they have all watched the teams that are in the markets for quarterbacks, especially if you're drafting this high. They've watched every snap the kid took in college, right? And certainly everything he did last year at the University of Miami. So they've got that part. They went to the combine, to sort of see the measurables. Okay, they went to the workout yesterday to see how he throws, and he threw really well. But as we all know, workouts like that, right? You're throwing against the air in shorts with receivers you're very familiar with on your home turf. It's the optimal condition. So are you really getting a true picture? But again, if you're drafting a quarterback this high, they are doing so much research, right? They're talking to so many people. They're talking to the coaches. They're talking to the teammates. They're just talking to so many people to get information. Again, they're watching the film over and over again. They're talking to all of their scouts who were at the games all year. So look, did the Tennessee Titans or any other team go to Coral Gables yesterday and say, well, this is the make or break event, like whatever happens here is going to decide it? No, absolutely not. But it's just they spend all this time gathering as much information as you can. And I think that's what's so important. It's you're making the most important hire for your franchise, right? I mean, we spend a lot of time talking about the background checks they do when they're hiring a head coach or general manager. There's nothing more important than the quarterback for your football team. So they are, in information gathering mode.
That's a good point when it comes to the quarterback gathering that we will come back to, I think, when we talk about the Aaron Rodgers situation. But I just want to stick on the draft very quickly because, as I mentioned, we're looking forward to the Colorado Pro Day, and the big talk in this draft is the fact that it's not so quarterback heavy in the first round. That there seems to be sort of two almost certain, but definitely highly touted quarterbacks to go in the first round, being Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And you look at mock drafts, and you can go from anywhere from Shedeur Sanders going second to going 22nd. And it seems to be a big spread as to how teams are looking at his talent and whether he is the right man to hang a franchise off of. And I think there were rumors going around that Dion suggested that they were looking or hoping for New York. I'm not quite sure how deep that
Right.
proliferated. Rumors are rumors, but they certainly add to the level of conversation on Shedeur in particular. So when you're looking at this, and we know obviously Cleveland are picking 2, New York are picking 3. There's a lot of movement still to happen between now and April. Is Shedeur a bit of a wild card in terms of how teams are going to look at him by the time we get the draft night in Green Bay in April?
I don't know if I would say he's a wild card. Certainly there are, I think going into the combine and then coming out of the combine right away, it was clear that Cam Ward had separated himself, right? Because I think for most of the college football season, and then even in the bowl game period, they seemed to be neck and neck, right? 1 and 2, 2 and 1. But then, as teams dug in, it seemed like Cam Ward separated, and it was clear that he was the top quarterback in everybody's eyes. And then I think it's just like, do you need a quarterback? Do you like what Shedeur can do? Right? He is more of a traditional drop back, quarterback, that kind of pro style quarterback. He's got good anticipation. He obviously knows the game. He does not have the sort of crazy rifle arm that Cam Ward has and that he showed yesterday. And Cam Ward can move. I think better than Shedeur can right now. So I think it's just like, do you like what he can give you? And does he fit into how you think your offense is going to run? But, there are a lot of teams that are absolutely desperate for quarterbacks. I mean, there's just no way around it, right? So I would be surprised if he drops all that far. There are just so many teams, and it was not a good free agency for quarterbacks. I mean, we'll talk about Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, but I mean, like, it wasn't, there just was not a blockbuster quarterback out there that was the perfect match for everybody. So I mean, you got to get a quarterback somewhere. And if you look right now, it seems like they literally don't have a quarterback. I mean, like the Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, they re-signed Mason Rudolph, but I mean, they don't have a starting quarterback. They made a trade for a super talented wide receiver. They don't have a quarterback yet. So, there's still a lot to happen in the next month. I would be surprised though if Shedeur slides all that far.
I think that brings us perfectly into, I think, one of the really interesting parts of this offseason. And I know, okay, it's the second time in 3 years that we've spent a lot of the NFL offseason talking about Aaron Rodgers. I think that's a testament to his potential, but also the fact that, unlike, for example, the Sam Darnold deal, this is taking a bit of time,
Yes.
and I'm not quite sure whether it's Rodgers is vetting out the team or team is vetting out Rodgers or what's going on in between. So when it comes to the relationship between Pittsburgh and Aaron Rodgers, what is the stumbling block that's happening that's stopping these guys from matching up? Because, like you say, Pittsburgh need a quarterback, and Aaron Rodgers needs a team that he can feel that he can go places with, and he can get into the playoffs with, and go even further. And that Pittsburgh is the right place to do that.
Yeah, I don't think there's a stumbling block with Pittsburgh. I don't think there's a stumbling block with any of these teams. I think he is just taking his time, which he has done in the past, right? I mean, the thing with the Jets 2 years ago was not done until draft week. Like that finally came together draft week. So he is a deliberate thinker. He wants to gather as much information as he can. I think so much of this is going to be about his feel for an organization, the fit with the organization. This is almost certainly going to be the last team he plays for. I mean, he's in his 40s now. So whether he is with this next team 1 year or 2 years, whatever it is, I mean, this is probably the last stop of his career. And you're right. I mean, he wants to be in a place where they can win. I think the last 2 seasons, he had everybody had such high hopes for the Jet situation, right? There was so much excitement. Um, and it obviously was a tremendous disappointment. The injury was devastating. Last year was awful. Um, there's no way he wants to end what has been just a spectacular career the way that ended with the Jets. And so he is certainly looking for a spot where he feels comfortable and where he feels like they have an opportunity to win, and even if it's not, actually win the Super Bowl, like make a deep run and contest for the Super Bowl. And I think he's just taking his time. I mean, he visited the Pittsburgh Steelers facility last week and basically spent all day there talking to coaches and seeing the place. So that tells you, I think that tells you two things. First of all, it tells you how seriously he is taking this process, that he's doing that. But it also tells you what he's looking for, right? I mean, like he wanted to spend time in the building and around people. Like he wants it to feel right. And I think again, the last 2 years were difficult. It was not pleasant, I think, for him. It got really unpleasant last year in particular when the coach got fired. It was just a mess. And so I think he's just looking for the right environment. And there's no deadline for this. I mean, he doesn't have to. There's just nothing in the NFL calendar that forces a decision. And so unless the teams, the Steelers or the Giants or anybody else out there says we need a decision by this date, like there's just no reason for him to rush. Like, do I think the Steelers with the Giants probably like to know by the draft? Yeah, I think both teams would like to know by the draft. But if you want him, you've got to sort of play by his rules on this. You got to give him some space, and they want him, so they're giving him space.
Yeah, it definitely seems like the Giants will probably be in a bigger rush considering they're picking third and the Steelers are picking 21st, I think. So that probably makes a bigger rush on their side to know. But I think it's a fair point that you make that we as NFL fans, we're used to things happening so quickly. It's as soon as free
Yeah,
agency happens, day one, there's a wave of things happening. Day two, there's a wave of things happening. I compare it to the way things are done in soccer, for example. These things take months. There's a bit of a saga. There's a 2 month window for transfers between big teams to happen. And I think that Rodgers is definitely, I think he's earned the right to take the time to not rush into a
yeah.
decision. But from the team's point of view as to what they're getting with Rodgers, and this is something we've had a debate about on our show. He what are you getting with Rodgers? Are you getting a 41-year-old quarterback who will find it very difficult to physically keep up with AFC North football, for example? Or are you getting somebody who still has the ability to throw the ball and be the difference maker for a team, in Pittsburgh's case, who have been missing that final edge to get farther into the playoffs? It is really difficult to tell, but I'm just interested as to how you see what Aaron Rodgers would do in going into a dressing room like that.
Well, uh, we saw the whole range last year, right? I mean, there obviously the whole team looked bad on the Jets last year, but there were flashes. There were games in the middle of the season where Rodgers looked pretty good. Did he look like Aaron Rodgers, when he was 26 years old? Did he look like the four-time MVP Aaron Rodgers? No, but he looked better than anything else you could get right now. He, and I think what the Steelers had last year, you know, they had Justin Fields. They went to Russell Wilson because they thought he could give them more, right? He could be more explosive. He could drive the ball down the field. And then it all sort of fell apart in those final few weeks of the regular season and in the playoffs. Well, Aaron Rodgers can still get the ball down the field, right? I mean, he can still do that. Can he move out of the pocket like he used to when he was younger? No, he cannot do that. So you're going to have to protect him. But he can still wing it, and he can still find the receiver, and they've got really good receivers in Pittsburgh. So I think in that respect, you get that part of Aaron Rodgers. You certainly get the brain. It is hard for me to imagine the way the offense collapsed in Pittsburgh in the last month of the season last year. It's hard for me to imagine that happening quite as severely with Aaron Rodgers. And I think, the Steelers are a veteran team that's in a way is desperate, right? There's a lot of great players on that team, veteran players who have not won a Super Bowl. The franchise hasn't won a Super Bowl in a long time now by Pittsburgh standards. This is a franchise that is used to contending for Super Bowls. They go to the playoffs every year, right? They never have a losing season, but they can't make any progress. Well, he can get you further than that. Can he get you the Lombardi Trophy? You made the point. The AFC North is an absolutely brutal division. Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson. I mean, these are tough competitors. I think he can win you more games though than down the stretch than they won last year, and that's what they need. They just need to get over that hump.
Yeah, it's all very well and good playing good football in October, but if it falls
Right.
in December, then it's very difficult to get
And
far
I
in this
should
league.
add this. Let me just interrupt you. He
Yeah,
would
go.
be much better than anything that the Giants had. That should be clear, right? I mean, the Giants have had not good quarterback play. He would be quite a significant jump for them.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I definitely think that he's somebody who I think Giants fans would like to see in the building. But you made a good point there about Pittsburgh and the standard they have in the squad. We've seen how well they've been able to play the last couple of years, but yet since Ben Roethlisberger left, that missing piece has been a quarterback. And that last year they kind of had a shot to nothing. They get rid of Kenny Pickett, completely changed their quarterback room, bring in Russell Wilson, and what was effectively wasn't a free deal, but I mean it was a pretty let's
Yeah,
just bring it
was
in. It's almost like a nothing to lose. Justin Fields, similar situation as well. We're now sitting at a point where Russell Wilson, has showed really good points during the season, but also really not good points, as you mentioned, during the stretch. There's a lot of quarterback hungry teams out there, but there just doesn't seem to be enough hunger for Russell Wilson. So where does he sit right now?
Well, he is sort of caught in the waiting game with Aaron Rodgers because Rodgers is the big domino that has to fall. There's still a lot of quarterback movement that has to happen, but Rodgers' decision is the big domino. And then you would think Russell Wilson would go right after that because the Giants have spoken to Russell Wilson. The Cleveland Browns have spoken to Russell Wilson. That's sort of the wild card. If the Browns want Russell Wilson right now, he could go there if he wants to. At the end of last season, even the way it ended, Russell Wilson was adamant that he wanted to be back in Pittsburgh. If Aaron Rodgers does not go to the Pittsburgh Steelers, do the Steelers turn back to Russell Wilson? That's a possibility. And so I think Russell is sitting there like all of us waiting for Aaron Rodgers to make a decision. And then his decision will come after that. Uh, you know, again, this is what I'd say. There are a lot of quarterback desperate teams. It's not a great draft for quarterbacks. There's just not that many that most of the evaluators think are first round talent. And it was not a great free agency. And don't forget, there's also the Kirk Cousins, like, will he be available for a trade? We don't really know yet. It seems like he has to be traded. But there's just not that many top level quarterbacks out there. And so if you are a team like these teams that we're talking about that is just desperate, that needs a quarterback, Russell Wilson's an option. Kirk Cousins would be an option, even though he lost his job to Michael Penix last year. You need a quarterback.
So just on Kirk Cousins, actually, do you reckon there's a scenario where a team, even if the Falcons may not have necessarily said that we were looking to trade this guy, where a team signals strongly enough that, hey, if he's available, we'll put the goods on the table to get him? Is that something which we could be looking at in the future?
I think what's going to happen is I think Kirk Cousins himself probably doesn't want to be traded. He has a no trade clause, so he can control this. Um, like he doesn't want to go to a team that might then turn around and draft a quarterback. He just lived that experience a year ago, and it obviously backfired on him badly. He was stunned by them drafting Michael Penix, and then Michael Penix took his job. So I don't think Kirk Cousins wants to be caught in that spot again. So I would not be surprised if he just waits. Everybody waits until after the draft. They see how things fall, who drafts a quarterback, what free agency, everybody settles in. And then I think you might see some movement. I know that the Falcons have said publicly that they're fine with having Kirk Cousins on the roster as a backup. That just doesn't sound like a good situation for anybody. Certainly not for Kirk Cousins, not for the Atlanta Falcons, not for Michael Penix, right? I mean, this should be his team now. He showed that he is worthy of being a starter. Like, it's hard to imagine how you put him out there with Kirk Cousins right over his shoulder. That's not a recipe for success for most young quarterbacks. So having Kirk Cousins on the roster in Atlanta as the backup, just that seems to be the non-starter. Something else has to happen. So I think we will get through the draft. We will see what the landscape looks like, and then I think we'll see some trade movement.
Oh, we certainly look forward to that. I guess the final point before I guess we talk maybe more generally about what teams we can see bounce back is just on the situation with JJ McCarthy in Minnesota. Because again, if we were chatting roughly this time last week, we would be talking about Aaron Rodgers and the potential to go to Minnesota, and yet it seems like that hasn't. Minnesota have made it clear that they do not want to speak with Aaron Rodgers, and that JJ McCarthy is the man. The Vikings look like they're a team who are built to win now, but yet they're pushing. They seem to be on the surface at least pushing ahead with somebody who is effectively a rookie quarterback. Do you reckon that's a course that they're going to stay?
I think it depends on what we see this spring and summer, right? I mean, the thing to remember about JJ McCarthy is last year, right after they drafted him, they loved him. Like, they loved what they saw from him in the offseason program and during training camp. Like, they were excited. And then he got hurt. So not only did he not play all season, he also didn't practice all season. So they haven't seen him like in team drills since whatever that was, when he, the first preseason game. So they haven't seen that. He missed all of that time, but they are high on him. I mean, they love him. I don't think there's any question. He's got to have a strong spring and summer, right? I mean, they want to see him look like, what they think the starting quarterback is going to look like. I mean, they have closed the door to Aaron Rodgers right now, but they have not slammed it shut. Like, the door is still ajar to the, like, well, they could revisit this later. Like, yeah, well, the later would be if JJ McCarthy is a disaster, or don't forget, he's coming off a serious knee injury, which they all say is coming along fine and he's great and he's on track. But like, if he doesn't look healthy, then what do they do? Because you're right, that's a super talented roster that got even better this year in the offseason. They are a team that can win right now. I think very much they want to go with JJ McCarthy. I mean, he is their first round draft pick. He's on the cheap rookie contract. I think very much they want that to work out. But you're right. Like, if he has a poor showing in the spring and summer, and in training camp doesn't look good, what do they do? And that is another thing that Aaron Rodgers might be waiting for, because that is certainly the intriguing option.
I can just see it in the eyes of almost every journalist who is covering the National Football League, that as soon as that Aaron Rodgers dominoes fall, everything else is going to happen, and It's like free agency week all over it again. All the crazy stuff happens, and that will certainly be fun. We've spoken a lot about quarterbacks, and of course, it's not just a quarterback league. There's so much is important in terms of the trenches and coaching and all other kind of roster changes which have happened across the league. You're somebody who is always keeping an eye out on the team which can make the transition from being a bad team last year to somebody who is contending. So when you're looking around the league and the way that certain teams have made moves, both in terms of who's on the sidelines and who's playing on the field, who are the teams you're looking at as potential comeback stories, I suppose?
I actually wrote about this week, so it's fresh in my mind. I think number one is the Chicago Bears, who made a great hire in Ben Johnson, who was clearly the hottest coaching candidate available, really creative play designer and play caller, and marrying him with Caleb Williams. And then in free agency, what was so bad last year. I mean, lots of things went wrong with the Bears last year, but Caleb Williams got sacked 68 times last year, led the league, just terrible. He had no shot. Um, Part of that was his fault. He held the ball too long in some cases, but I mean, 68 sacks simply cannot happen. So they went to work on the offensive line. They basically rebuilt the interior of the offensive line. So that is good. They got some pass rush help. They did a lot of work in the trenches, the offensive and defensive lines. And I'm curious to see what they do in the draft now. But certainly, just Ben Johnson and an improved offensive line with Caleb Williams' talent should produce more wins than they had last year. That division is really tough, so I'm not saying they're going to go win the NFC North, but I think we're going to get a better result.
And in terms of the teams who, I guess, last year were near the top, of course, obviously the Eagles being Super Bowl champions, but they've lost a lot of players on the roster. Now they seem to be around the edges. They haven't lost a core guy like Saquon Barkley, for example, but they've lost around the edges. We know that the Chiefs have had to expend so much to try and stay at the top. And there's other things happening as well around the Lions losing so many of their coaching staff, for example, who've gone on to coach, like you mentioned, Chicago, New York as well. Some other guys going to coach in New England. Are those the teams that we're looking at as potential downfall stories, or is there somewhere else that we could look at?
Yeah, it's hard for me to say that I think the Eagles or the Chiefs are going to slide that much because they've got, I mean, obviously the Chiefs have Patrick Mahomes and a whole lot of other talent. They've got really good general managers and head coaches who are really good at filling in. I mean, last year at this time, the Eagles were coming off that terrible second half slide where, it looked like the whole team imploded. They got rid of both coordinators. You're like, man, what is going on with the Eagles? Can they even figure out what happened to them? And then they made some moves in free agency, some great moves in free agency. And, now they're world beaters and they just beat up on the Chiefs. So it's hard for me to rule out those two teams because they are so well managed. The GMs are so good. The quarterbacks are so good. They've got so much talent on the roster. So I would not rule those out. Detroit is an interesting case because they were so good last year, but losing that much of your coaching staff is not easy to replace, right? I mean, you lose both of your coordinators, other assistant coaches. Like Dan Campbell's had his work cut out for him. So we'll see what they do. But I mean, look, again, they still have a lot of talent on that roster. They still got the quarterback. And if you've got that, you are well ahead of many, many other teams. So I don't know who I think is going to take a step back. I think we still have to see what happens in the draft. And then obviously once they get onto the field, unfortunately, so much of this game is about health. And that's when you start to see what teams might struggle.
Thank you very much for taking the time out. I have one final question, I guess, for people who are looking ahead and start making their mock drafts. Who out of the group in the top 5 do you reckon could potentially trade out of their spot?
Wow, who would trade out of their spot? Well, I don't think Tennessee is going to trade out of their spot. I guess it's possible Cleveland does, and maybe possible that the Giants maybe go down on a spot or two if they don't think they can get, if they can't get Cam Ward and if they don't like Shador. We'll see. So I guess maybe those two would drop, but I don't think they would drop that far because those teams need talent infusions, and I can't imagine they're going from that high in the draft too far down. But at this point, I think the Tennessee Titans are sticking at number 1. So I think you can count on that.
Very good. Well, it's funny. We did a live show for the draft last year, and we had the little noise, the jingle for every time. That I'm ready. Yeah. We were so keen to use it so much in the first round, and it didn't quite happen.
Didn't happen.
I think we're almost like false building up excitement in our own heads that maybe there might be some more trades on draft night. But look, we're all very, very excited and looking forward to the draft. Judy, Battista of the NFL Network, thank you very much for taking the time out to join us and to give us your insight. We very much enjoyed it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.